This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released March 3rd, 2019. Episode 432. Check the dummy box.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
Hey, Ned.
Hey, man. Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
It's been a couple weeks, but always good to talk to you.
Yep.
Boy, do I have something to say to you.
What?
You should come to KaiCon.
All right. It's all happening.
How do you feel about flying for 50 hours to see me?
It's about 40. Don't exaggerate.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
You're right.
No. Where is it again?
Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. No, it's probably 50.
Yeah. It's like 15 to
LA or whatever. Or Dallas.
LA, another 40 here, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep. With layovers, it's
not a good time. Not a good time.
When is it?
April 26th and 27th in Chicago, Illinois. And tickets are on sale now. And I don't know, did you see the talks that were announced?
Yes, I did. I had a look at the list. It's
it's pretty good actually, right?
There's a lot. Yeah, it's tons.
I'm excited. I think the thing that I'm excited about is that I doubt that people are going to come if they're not KiCad users, but I think there's enough stuff there. If someone wasn't, they were just interested in like PCB design and manufacturing.
There seemed to be other stuff that would be interesting that wasn't sort of KiCad specific, really. But I'm sure they'll all.
Well, yeah, because if it was just about the program, it would be pretty dull, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Totally.
So I think there's enough other stuff, and I think the people listening might be interested in it. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of hooks into KiCad, but like the things like one of the top talks here by Andre is applying CI and CD. I don't know if you know what that is. Continuous integration.
Oh, right.
That's Yeah, it's like the software automated stuff, and I think just like automating PCB design, regardless of how you do it, it's kind of interesting. So like tying into GitHub, tying into similar stuff like that. I'm excited about that just because the things that we do over and over again, some of that could be automated, and for a long time I had no capability to do it. Now I benefit from other people using software, people coming in. That I appreciate them. So, and plus, hang out with me if you want. That's the cool part, I guess. And we're gonna party around Chicago, so we'll go do Chicago-y things on Sunday. So, I'm excited. I'm nervous, but excited.
Come on, you're a conference veteran.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yeah, I get nervous about those too.
Right. Okay. Why? What do you think? What, people aren't going to show up? What are the fears that go through your mind?
Okay, so like imagine everything that can go wrong.
Yep.
And then double that, and that's like usually what goes through my brain.
Right. Okay. So it's like nobody turns up, then they call in a bomb threat, and then
exactly. And then the food isn't there, or the food gives everyone food poisoning.
And then the projector doesn't work, and then the mics don't work, and the
badges all explode. So pretty much everything that I could think of.
Right.
I got that covered.
Has anything gone wrong at the conferences you've organised? Like, are things broken down and you've had to make do, or
no, not to date. I've sufficiently worried about stuff, I think, beforehand.
Right. That you've sort of had backups or plans in place. So I'm looking like, KiCad PCB design for rapid prototyping. It's like, okay, it's kind of, you can do it in KiCad, but I'm sure there's, you can do it in any tool, right? It's just
exactly.
And the schematics, the heroine of electronics design, that's really, is it really about KiCad?
That one actually, that's a Python tool. So that's about using software to build hardware, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
But I think that stuff could be extensible
version
too.
Control, designing with decentralized groups, top 5
that kind of stuff,
top 5 footprint mistakes, this is all generic stuff, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot of great sponsors and badges and all that stuff. So
because it'd be boring if everyone turned up and like there was a keynote about, oh, isn't KiCad wonderful, and everyone just sits around going, oh yeah, KiCad's great, and it's the best thing ever, fist bump,
right?
Right. And that was it.
Right. Well, when I helped out with SuperCon too, it was just like, I don't know, like I remember going to conferences where I wanted to watch certain things, or like, and
Yeah.
there was always stuff like kind of missing, and that's what I was trying to get out of people, is like, be like, give a talk about that. I want to see this, like,
Right.
That's, I don't know if there's like, we've struggled and we've talked about it in the past too, of like you have electronics down there, and that helps, but there's not the talks as much as that's a trade show floor,
No,
right?
no, there are no. Well, there's occasionally like there's a PCB conference associated with it, but it's all just
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. They sort of run at the same time. Yeah, like in the same,
Okay.
like they share the same venue and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're sort of intertwined. But yeah, but that's something you've got to pay huge money for. It's a big thing. It's
Yeah,
not
right,
it's
exactly.
not really part of the conference. It's not really part of the exhibition. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
how does it work? Like, are they just one after the other over a couple of days, or do they like on at the same time in separate rooms, and you have to pick and choose?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be pick
The
and
ladder.
choose. So there's
Okay.
two rooms. Well, there's
Right.
3 total rooms. 2 of them are going to actually have talks,
Got it.
and then they'll both get recorded, though. I mean, basically, I'm just copying SuperCon. I'm going to be completely honest.
Right. Okay.
And,
Sure.
for like as cheaply as I can.
Right.
I think that's the best way, just because otherwise, like, if you think about the logistics of it, say you get like 4 slots in the morning, 4 slots in the afternoon.
Yep.
If you have a 2-day conference, you only have 16 speakers then.
Right.
Like, that's kind of crazy. So we're doubling that, and it'll be
Wow.
squeezing in more where we can. But there's a lot of people that want to give talks, so that's great.
So do you have to pony up the money up front, or you're relying on the sales, the ticket sales to, you paid a small deposit yourself, and how does it work financially?
Financially, so like it's out of the space here that I work in, MHub. So we're just
Oh,
gonna
okay,
come here.
that's right, M Hub are donating space. Okay, right.
Yeah, so they're not donating the whole space, but I they give me very nice payment terms, and then
Right.
there's some great
Got it.
sponsors too, and
Okay,
that
cool.
stuff together is I don't think I would have a conference to do it unless some of the sponsors stepped up, so that was really helpful.
Right. Okay. Yep. Because that'd be a huge risk if you had to, pony up a huge deposit
Yeah,
yourself,
exactly.
and
Exactly. So
Cool.
yeah, man. So I'm excited. We'll see how it all works out.
Excellent.
I'll be stressed for the next 8 weeks or so, but after that I'll be fine.
I went to a meetup last night.
Yeah, how was it?
It was great. I won't say who. Yeah. Former
It was
employees.
it was technical in nature, and it sounded like you had
very
a great
technical
time.
in nature. Former employees of a company who shall remain nameless.
Right.
And they happened to be in the country for a new startup they're doing, and we met up, and it was awesome. Talked about
man.
all sorts of crap.
Look at this, Dave's finally social. When there's smart enough people in the room, Dave will be social. It can be said. How's the EEV blog meetup number 3 going? Is that going to be a once a year thing, like the
it
EEV
was.
blog holiday party?
When was the last one? Shit.
You've done 2 now. One when I was there, and then
Yeah.
the second one was 2 or 3 months ago, I think.
No, like I was taking a straw poll there while I was there, and everyone said no, 6 months at a minimum.
Yeah.
Like don't
Yeah.
make it more than once or twice a year.
I think there's benefit to that, actually, because then
Oh, yeah,
people have
totally.
time to build up projects. There's something to look forward
they do
to.
exactly. They have something
Yeah.
new to show off, new to talk about, and
Yeah.
things like that. But that works pretty well. I've toyed with the idea of having a more conference-like thing where people could give, everyone sits down and people give a talk kind of
Yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
I don't know.
That's not a bar then, that's for sure. Like, it's got to be a different venue.
No, it's got to be a conference center, and I'd have to, just like
And
you,
then
I'd have to
money's
get
involved
sponsors.
and-
Money's involved.
right.
I'd have to get sponsors and crap like that, and and one of the interesting things we were talking about last night was that what are the differences between like the scene here in Australia and like overseas, they seem quite surprised that I said, well, if I was, single and I had no ties, I wouldn't be doing the blog from here. I'd be in the US, right? Because
really?
that's just where all the action is. Yeah.
What were they surprised about, though? I mean,
Well,
really was for the surprise, not the other stuff.
They thought, that there was so much stuff happening here, and I'm going, well, just not like at a vastly smaller scale.
Yeah.
Vastly
well,
smaller.
I think if they have any software inclination though too, they might be like, oh well, Sydney does have a ton of software stuff.
Oh yeah, no, of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That would be different.
we might like there's a hardware startup I just posted on the forum. There's like a startup-y hardware conference that's up in Queensland. It's next month or something.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of it's not. It's not really the same. Like we don't have any conferences here. Like apart from the yearly electronics exhibition, it's not even a conference. We don't have any of that. Whereas you guys will have half a dozen. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
A year
Yeah.
easy, right?
Oh,
More.
sure. I mean, like
More.
even like
and
the
local
independent,
ones
right? I was gonna say like the independent ones I could think of are like SuperCon, Teardown just got announced, which is the
What's Teardown?
That's the crowd supply based one,
okay,
so it's kind of like
see? Like
general
chance.
hardware.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we have nothing like that. And you guys like have probably 2 dozen. I'm sure if you went and researched them and listed them, you'd have a couple of dozen a year.
Sure.
Minimum.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
And it depends on which specialization you go into as well.
Oh,
like
yeah,
you
of
can go
course.
real deep. If you go in the
Yep.
security world, they've got their own stuff. If you
Yep.
go into like the more industrial, like right now as we're recording, this is Wednesday, right? We're recording this the 27th. There's what's it called? Embedded Worlds out in Nuremberg in
Yep.
Germany. I guess that's not the US, but like there's just
Right.
always something going on.
There's something going on, exactly. And that's where all the big names are, and that's where all the big networking happens. If you're based here in Sydney, in Australia, like you're so far from networking with people, it's just not funny.
Right. Right. Well,
And-
and it's spaced out too. I think. I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty sprawling there. So.
Yeah.
But that's tough, and I mean, I know some people that live, in more remote areas of the U.S., and if they want to get together with people, they got to go. They have to centralize at a conference or something.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah, they've got to do their 6-hour flight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. But we don't really, even have the option here. Look, I could turn up to this Queensland startup. Yeah, I could fly up. It's only maybe an hour and a bit, to fly up to Queensland. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's just not
You
the
should
same
go, man.
scale. It's maybe.
I mean, it's not the same scale. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you basically got to work a lot harder if you want to meet the same number of people, right? Whereas if you go to like the Bay Area, you can go to like 2 meetups and probably meet the equivalent amount that you'd meet up at that larger conference there.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other thing too is like when I think about the kind of people that I look to meet, like basically I like meeting all people, like, to be completely honest. But like when I want to like geek out with people, it's like usually a pretty similar kind of crowd, right? It's like the EV blog meetup that you did when I was there. Like that crowd was all hardware nerds who were from the forum and watch your videos and listen to the show and like stuff like that. I think that's a very specific kind of thing. You go to a conference, you're also gonna get like, oh, I'm in business development or I'm in software, and like all these other things. And it's like I like meeting them, and it's like, let me say, it's very important to meet those people, especially if you're starting a business or something.
Oh, of course.
But it's a different. You're not going to geek out with them as much, in my opinion. You're not going to. Not everyone's going to bring a project to that meetup. How about that?
No, that's right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Maybe I will go. Maybe I'll.
I think you should, man. Yeah,
like,
you got.
Like,
I mean,
it didn't sound
I
that
think there's only so many
exciting.
options.
It was more like if you're doing a startup, it was more like try and maybe like meet with investors and stuff like that. And,
See, I think the other thing, though, too, is to be what I call a colonizer. I tried to do this in Cleveland, Ohio. Let me tell you, there's not many harder things to do than being a colonizer in Cleveland, Ohio, where you say, like, hey, you should come here, right? That's like a hard thing to do. But very easily, you could be like, you Dave Jones, could be like, I'm going to this thing in Queensland. It might not be the most relevant thing for everyone, but let's all just gather there and make like a mini conference within a conference.
That's what I was thinking about. I was just just ran through my mind a minute ago. I thought, no, look, if I'm going to this, I'm not just going to go hang out at that event.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'll advertise it and have like we'll
bring your posse.
We'll rent another room in that hotel or whatever, and.
Yeah, or even just be at the same conference, and then
of course.
or hang at a
Yep.
bar at some point,
and then like afterwards spill over to something else.
Exactly.
I think it's like a couple of day thing.
Oh, perfect.
So anyway, which is interesting that it's in Queensland and it's not in Melbourne or Sydney. It's like Sydney's usually very slack. Like there's more stuff in Melbourne, or even Adelaide or Western Australia or Queensland. It's really. Yeah. I don't know what it is about Sydney. Sydney has like its
it's
software
the price,
ones, right?
It's the price. Y'all ain't cheap.
Prices are plummeting.
Oh yeah. Oh good. Yeah.
It's slightly under $1 million now, you know.
Yeah,
It's like-
right.
yeah.
So affordable, right?
So yeah, mate, yep. Let me investigate that.
Okay, all right. Well, future announcements to come from the EEV blog meetup in
Sweet.
Queensland. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Why
man.
not? Yeah, I need to get out more.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
got one. Well, it's not scheduled yet, but I'm doing a meetup with someone just down the road. They're in the local business park, and they want to. They're doing like an in-house talk at their company. It's a huge company who shall remain nameless
cool.
at this stage, and they they're like an expert in manufacturing yield and stuff like that. You know, how to he reckons
great
that they've
topic.
got their failure rates on their boards down to like virtually zero. You know,
Wow.
and there's a whole bunch of mechanisms they
Six
put in
Sigma
place
type
to
stuff.
do this. Yeah, all that sort of jazz. Yeah. And and he's like, and he gave like gave like an internal talk about it, and wants to now do it like kind of external. So he has invited me in to sort of, we can discuss that. Maybe it can be an amp hour episode. Maybe I'll just take my
that'd be great.
little handheld recorder, and we'll just do an hour talking about manufacturing, production,
Yeah.
optimization.
That's the kind, I've been thinking about that recently because I've been making some boards lately, and it's nothing groundbreaking.
Right.
But I keep thinking about like the things that I'm doing are very obviously, and all the mistakes that I make are very obviously the same mistakes a lot of other people make.
Sure.
And for like specifically to manufacturing, I was thinking about the manufacturing side of it. Nobody runs into that stuff until they run smack into it. It's
Until
like,
they run smack into
I'm
it.
about
Yeah,
to do
it's head first or
10,000
nothing.
units.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And it's like,
Yep.
now I have a problem. And it's the same problem
Yep.
that everybody else had, of course.
Yep.
But how would you know about it until you get there? And so you kind of have to like
No,
sample,
yeah,
like what you're
that's
talking about.
it.
You have to like kind of sample all these different disciplines so that you at least know to be like at least so you see this thing and your brain goes, uh-oh, there's danger here.
Yep.
So you're not running towards it. Maybe you walk towards it or you crawl
Right.
towards it or this potential
it's
problem,
always
but
head
you're at
on.
least
No,
thinking
it's
about
always,
it.
No, it's always last
Oh,
minute,
man.
and
Same thing
You have to
happens
meet
for
a
like
deadline
accounting
and then-
for me.
Right.
Like it's like I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm running the same exact problems that everybody else does, and it's sometimes it's amazing to me that there aren't guides out there. Obviously it's not. No one's gonna have the exact same situation
Oh
that I
no,
do.
that's it. You can't. It's hard to do a generic guide. There'd be so much things. It's like the last time we were on, we looked at that list, that PCB checklist, and it's
Yeah,
practically
that's true.
infinite.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
You
But
can't
still,
cater
I think
for
that
enough.
having something where you can skim it and like be like you're right. Like you're not gonna get everything because like it's always the sub note in the data sheet on page 58 underneath the diagram that says this feature does not work or whatever it is. It's like it's the last thing that you read, and then you read it and you go, oh crap.
Yeah.
But at least having the list, you might catch one or two. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know.
And it's like if you're really lucky, you might get a manufacturer who might, like an assembler or something, who might know that you're going to run into a problem with this, and
Yeah,
they
that's
might
true.
tell you up front, but a lot of them won't, even if they
Right.
do know.
Yeah,
they'll
because they're
know,
also busy anyways, right?
yeah,
They-
exactly.
They just expect that you've done it before.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like there
And-
should be like a checkbox for like, I'm the new person.
Yep. Right. I'm a dummy. Yes, please tell me
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
I'm doing
the
wrong.
dummy
Right.
box. That's what we
Dummy-
need. The dummy
yeah.
box.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't want to. Offer because you're not paying them to as a engineering advice service. You're paying them to do what you tell them to do. And if you
Right,
tell them to
right,
do
right,
this,
right.
and they know it's stupid and it's not going to work, they're just going to go, well, we'll do it anyway. It's their money,
Yep.
Like,
Right.
or it might work and we'll get a 50% yield, and well, tough luck. That's not my problem.
That means they got to pay for more services.
That's it. And yeah.
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 Yeah. How are your boards going these days? You still Micro Supplies chugging along?
It's chugging along. It's or something always new always comes up. It's we just had to change a few parts for a couple of reasons. And, well, no, it's unstable again now. Like, yeah, I've got to go through the
like
whole...
oscillation stuff?
Yeah, got to go through the whole process again. And, yeah.
Yeah, source meter days are coming back to me. I was never good with that stuff, but capacitive loads and all that jazz.
And just dealing with the software side of things, because the software part of it is so abstracted and high level in the bleeding edge C++.
Right, so you're not digging into registers as much as you're like doing it's object-oriented stuff.
Yeah, it's doing the highest end object-oriented professional type approach to it, and we're finding bugs in the GCC compiler. That are showstoppers.
Really?
Yeah, that are showstoppers,
Wow.
and we have to wait for the GCC developers to come back and go, oh yeah, that kind of doesn't work. And
is this a new part or an older part?
It's a ST part. It's it's
like
been around
F4?
for a while, but I'm sure. Yeah, and it's got bugs. It's got silicon bugs, right? There's a silicon bug in the ADC, and of course we're using the ADC, and there's this weird silicon bug to do with the low bit resolution, or like the I don't know. I can't remember, but yeah, like it's no.
But that's the kind of thing where it's like it's buried on page 58, and it's like
accuracy.
this.
No, it's not even on there. And sure enough, you go on the ST forums, and it's like the odd person has had this problem, and ST have gone, oh yeah, we think there's an issue there. We're working on it. Kind of. Okay, well. It's a bit. We rely on the accuracy of that ADC, right? And it's screwing with the accuracy, right? It actually it's out by 4 least significant bits or something. It's like there's some weird ass bug in it, and it's a pain in the ass. And we're thinking it's part of our circuit, right? We're thinking it's the tolerance of our parts, our reference, and all sorts of things. No, it turns out there's something wrong with the analog to digital converter. At the silicon level.
Wow.
So, and
is that not a showstopper though?
It's not a showstopper. I think ST have provided some sort of software workaround or something, and there's other things you can do to do workarounds for it. But yeah, it's like this sort of stuff takes weeks to just these little issues, and bingo, you've wasted another 2 weeks, another for all these little issues that pop up. And it's just it's a pain. But we are thinking about an external ADC now, and it's because this thing's just given us, a lot of grief, and there's not much you can do. When you hit those limits and you're reliant upon the developer of some open source software to fix it, or you're relying on, the manufacturer to fix a silicon bug or come up with a workaround and investigate it and, give you a workaround app note or something, then, it's...
Yeah.
Just kills your development time.
Yeah, this is the darker side of open source, I think. You basically, you have to, sometimes you either got to dig in and start changing the code yourself, which is not great.
Right,
or you got to wait around and just hope that you can
it's
either
GCC,
pay a developer or
we can
find a developer.
We can go in and fix it ourselves, right, in theory. Right, apart from the silicon, we can go in and fix the GCC compiler ourselves. But geez, you don't want to be doing that. The other thing we're working on is I've got in my hand right now. I've got a custom planar transformer. We needed the efficiency across a wider range, and especially at lower standby currents and stuff like that. And yeah, we worked out the parameters that we required for this transformer. We went to a custom planar transformer manufacturer. That's all they do. And they weren't particularly cheap to get some prototypes made, but they actually designed this job, and it's really quite sexy.
Is this for isolation or is this for switch mode?
This is for an isolated switch mode.
Oh, there you go. Why not both?
Yep. And and it's cool. It's basically an 8-layer PCB with a ferrite, actually through the board and going around, and it uses the internal layers to make the coils. And and it's
so what's the upside? I mean, upside is really low profile, right?
It's lower profile. That's the advantage of planar transformers usually. And traditionally, technically, this kind of isn't a planar transformer, because a planar transformer is that the coils the coils aren't stacked on top of each other. They actually fan out flat. So a planar transformer is technically a big, flat, wide transformer, and the coils just radiate outwards, if you know what I'm talking about, like bigger and bigger circles.
It looks like a spiral, basically.
It looks like a spiral from the top down, But whereas this one is not that, it's actually using a
so now
PCB
it's like
to drop down to the next layer.
Trace via one thick trace.
To drop down to the next layer and go around. So it's, but it's kind of like the planar manufacturing type, so you call it a planar transformer, but
I think PCB transformer is another probably way to say it, right, or something like that.
Maybe something like that, but planar is the and there's advantage, as always, there's pros and cons. Otherwise everyone would be doing planar transformers, right, if they're so fantastic. They're fantastic at getting better coupling, but losses at X frequency. I can't remember the trade-offs, but there's sure you can
because you're basically now you're not using air, you're using like a different dialect, you're using the PCB dielectric.
You're using a different dielectric and stuff like that, but it's it's pretty cool. And it took them, like, apparently our requirements were pretty tough for them, and they had to go through it actually took some time for them to do multiple revisions and stuff like that, and I was I'm not sure if they have like modeling tools for it. You would think like a planar transformer manufacturer, that's all they do, would have some whiz-bang custom tool to, you whack in the parameters and out pops this final design, but apparently that's not how it works. Someone strokes their beard and goes,
volume though.
Yeah, it actually took some time to get this made, and they said, they had to go through quite a few revisions of this thing and to actually meet our specs. So, yep. Anyway, I think it's pretty sexy, and it's and it's cheaper because you might think transformers are cheap, but good transformers aren't cheap. So so we are saving by going to this planar transformer in terms of like a regular custom wound transformer,
Right. You'll also save in like weight, and I guess you'll have
weight, and the efficiency's better and everything else. So if you want a really efficient traditional wound one cheap, you can do it, but it's probably going to be much bigger and like
that's interesting. You're giving up some efficiency on the power side.
No, this one's definitely more efficient. It's more efficient and smaller. It's better in almost every way for our particular niche purpose.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But is it the battery is powering the transformer that then pushes it to the isolated side?
Oh, I'm not saying.
Secretive, yes. Okay. All right, fine. You do your thing. I'll wait a little while.
All right.
That's cool. I was curious though, like how do you think about that stuff too? Because I've been talking on the consulting forum, and again, I guess I have to be a little secretive here. But one of the questions I think about is, so between consulting and doing a product, like it's almost like if you're doing a product, you're the client and you're the designer.
Yes, that's right.
So like, I know you don't really bill for hours, but like, how do you think about it? Like, is it just like, well, we want to get this thing done, so we just get it done?
That's the difference between David too and I. He likes, ridiculously rigid specs, and we must stick to the specs, and we must, it's like there's a deadline and there's a specific specs to meet.
Right.
I'm more like, meh, like I'm going, he goes, what spec do we need? And I'm going, meh, just make it decent, and like to me, that's a valid approach, because this is, I don't, like, you can get caught up by trying to meet a spec, right? And like, let's say you want 0.1% accuracy, for example, right? Well, at what voltage? Do you want a 0.1% at full scale? Do you still want 0.1% down at 10% of full scale? Because if you do, that's going to be much harder. You end up stepping up, paying an extra $2 for a better reference just to meet that. Whereas, like, you might not care about, that at lower, but you might argue, hey, well, just make your spec better, right? As in more requirements in your spec. Okay, at 10%, it's X spec, and at 50%.
Yeah, but that's tough too when there's not like
I know, it's silly.
you don't have a product group yet.
No,
like
that's
after
right.
there's something in the market for 10 years, and it's like, well, there's all these different offerings, and
That's
if we
right.
if we slaughter our specs in between the number 2 and number 3 producer out there, then we can definitely
then we
hit all
can
the,
do it. That's right. That's
Right.
when it
But
pays.
if it's
But when you're
like-
developing your own thing for
Yeah.
that nobody really has a hard requirement for, it's just it's
Right.
Yeah.
I'd say almost like it's like the spec is the what are people willing to pay for at the beginning, and then
price,
make the category.
price matters. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
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 And
But
there's
to a
some
point,
other things you spec, like. Yeah, but it's like you can't just make everything rigid because you might see, oh, well, look, if I loosen my spec by 0.1%, I can use this part that's 10 times cheaper. And it's like, oh, that spec's going to be good enough, and it's going to be, or we can get the user to calibrate it themselves or something, or things like that.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
we can have a calibration process in production instead of designing in the calibration by buying expensive
self-test.
parts, like and doing all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's difficult.
Is it? No, it's a tough balance, and I think honestly, I think sometimes it's harder to design something when there are no specs, just because, like, what do you do? Like, how do you make these decisions? Like, if you have a complete greenfield, you don't have constraints, and engineering is all about constraints. So then, like, you
It
basically
is.
have to impose constraints, and you have to hope that your constraints aren't ridiculous.
Well, see, I can see it from David's point of view because it's my project, right?
Yeah.
But he's the one doing most of the design work on it, and
Right.
it's like so to me it's more personal. To him, it's just an engineering task that needs to be completed.
Yeah.
And I would be in exactly the same position, right? When I had a real job, and I would want those specs. It's like, well, don't give me open specs. I want something to work to. Otherwise, I'm just gonna, make
Right.
something
How do you
up on
know
my own.
you're done otherwise?
Yeah.
Like that's a
Yeah.
big
How do you
thing.
know you meet the deadline for this month so you can show it off at the design review meeting, and you can, the Gantt chart, you can tick off that section of the Gantt chart and it's done.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
all that sort of stuff. Whereas, me, because this is more of a personal project for me rather than, a hard and fast, professionally, sort of like it's just a product and I don't care, right? It's more personal to me. So that's when I don't like specs, because I like being able to just breeze on through and go, oh, I'll change the direction this way because that's more fun, or this will be cooler, or I don't like. It's just it's very different to when you're designing for a client, or whether whether you're designing for a company, and you're just an engineer on the team or whatever. It's very different.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it'd be different if my job was not making videos and my job was an engineering company designing products, right? If that was my, that'd be very different.
I was going to say too, if you, so you, like you said, you're designing it for you, right?
Yeah,
and that's,
right.
I think that is actually a good way to do it sometimes, because
Sure.
in a wide open field where there isn't really a thing in this category, it's like, okay, well, then pick one person, and why not you?
Right.
But I think if you're, like you're saying, if it was a company, then what you would do is then you would be the product manager, and you'd go out and you'd be like, all right, I'm going to find 100 people who are likely buyers, and then figure out what they need and capture all their things. It's like boring.
Boring.
And what is the willing? What are you willing to pay for this right now? It's like, oh
Right.
well, yeah.
Yep.
So that's fun. At least you don't have to do that piece. At least you're like, you just have to like scratch your head a little, be like, yeah, I think I'd like that. It's okay.
Right. Oh dear. Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, get them specs, man. Get them specs. Look at that.
Yeah.
David's texting you right now, and he's just like, Dave, I need the specs.
That's my meetup last night. He's doing.
Oh, nice.
He's actually working on this new startup product, and he doesn't like it. It's it's reasonably groundbreaking, and he didn't tell me how he did it. Right, so he's like, there's this specific technical thing that they're doing, and it's like nobody's done it this way before, and so we're I'm throwing a few ideas at the when we met up, and he's like, nah, it's not really that. Nah, keep on thinking about it, And this morning I finally, this is the only way he can do it, and I think I'm on the money. So he's now texting me. So I texted him, and it's like it's on the money. I think it's on the money. Nice. I think I've figured it out. It was like a process of elimination. No, they can't use this. There's only several techniques you can use to do this thing, and
That's great.
Yep. Anyway, so I think I got him. I like it.
Well, another product I was going to mention is one I've been playing with a little bit. Is the Joule Scope? Have you seen that one?
What's a Joule Scope?
It's on the subreddit. So basically, this is not necessarily a new concept, but I like the interface and everything too. So it's Matt Liberty who's doing this. He was just on Embedded, actually.
Right.
2 weeks ago, 1 week ago.
And he's got a Kickstarter.
Basically,
it's
Kickstarter.
He has met his goal. Yep.
I think he actually has a Joule Scope in your mailbag right now, but I don't think he'll make it in time, so that's okay.
Oh, really? What's sitting here?
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You could probably like open it up while we're going. No.
Oh, geez. Okay. It's got another 21 days left, so
Yeah, perfect. It's cool though. So it's like a low power measurement thing, and it's a hard thing. He was trying to explain it to Alicia and Chris on Embedded, and basically it's like the software switching of ranging, and basically it's it's a competitor to a somewhat competitor to the microcurrent, but it's it's got digital range switching and stuff like that.
Yep.
And but like the same thing that the microcurrent does. Basically, it's for people that are trying to measure super low currents, and then it can range up if you have say you have like a Wi-Fi device. It's in sleep mode, then it turns on. It's it's
I'm working on
dumping a bunch of current.
It looks like I'm working on the exact same thing. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
What the micro supplies like that or no?
No. A follow up to the microcurrent. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's cool though.
Like,
so there's other people that are doing this. What was it called? There was another one. I'll look it up in a second. So ST actually has like a dev board that does this kind of thing as well. So it's not like you have to do this kind of thing.
Oh, do they?
And this is definitely a little more upmarket. Yeah, there's one that's a cheap. It's like it's meant to be. Maybe it was NXP. It was basically one of the board manufacturers put one of these kind of in line. They used a bunch of op amps and they put it in line for doing power monitoring, ostensibly to show, hey, we're also making these low current parts. Why don't you measure the low current while we go? So. And now I'm trying to remember the other one. It was like I think they advertised on your site at one point. It was like another current monitor. It was out of Sweden.
Jeez, I don't recall.
Yeah, but there was another one that was like that, and they were doing similar things as well, where they basically could do current ranging. From low levels up to high levels. And this is, so I think you've made videos about this before.
Yeah, yes, I have.
Sleep versus...
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard because it's a dynamic range issue, and range switching isn't as trivial as it appears, because when you're in when you're measuring a sleep current, for example, and when that processor wakes up, you've got to have... to measure that low current, you've got to have a series shunt resistor that is a high enough value so that you can actually read it's taken half a microamp or something, right? Yeah. So you've got to have a high enough value. But then if it instantly wakes up, then that resistor starves the processor of actual current before it has time to actually switch and to detect that and switch ranges. So it's, there's a trade-off. And the way you can get around that is by adding extra capacitance there to sort of like hold the charge long enough so it detects it and then has time to range to a lower value shunt resistor, so that then the processor won't, shut itself off because the voltage has dropped too far. And it's really tricky business.
It is tough. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, Keithley too, but we weren't even doing the visualization piece. So it was like most of the time, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people associate with. If you're looking at it, say you have like a nice DMM and you are, and it is great at auto ranging, even in the fastest auto ranging, are you going to catch what it looks like? If you have a spike in current, you know, if you just see that the display blips, you pretty much need to be looking at like on a time-based scope in order to like to catch like, oh, there was an event there. You know, you need to see that spike and that kind of thing. So, and I found the other one I was thinking of is OTII by Koitek, and that's another similar product. So they used to advertise on your site. If you didn't know.
Koitek, yes.
Yeah.
What is it? The OTII?
That's the name of the actual product. The OT is the product.
Oh, yes. Oh, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So I've used that too. That one was a little tougher for me. I think the voltage ranges were different on that one. Like that was only 3.7 and below.
Yeah, no,
like
that didn't go down low. It was for higher power, was it, from memory or something? I don't know. I'd have to.
I don't know. But it did. I mean, it did similar things too, and it's still out there. So, but I think that like basically these days, in order to get the measurements you need like that, so I'm doing like LoRa stuff and cellular stuff and Wi-Fi stuff, and basically when you're doing these things, most of the time you're going to be asleep, so you got to be ready for that when that slug of current comes in. Because surprisingly, even with LoRa stuff, I don't know if you know, like even LoRa stuff when it's in like a transmit mode, it's dropping 20 milliamps, or more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
It's up there,
No,
So,
the Koitek one is only 4K samples per second, and it's only one microamps to 5 amps, so it doesn't do the really low stuff. It doesn't do really low stuff. So
okay.
I was right. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're great.
But
I mean, they're both
this new one, this dual scope looks all right.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it's not too dissimilar to what I'm working on at the moment, actually. So
well, there we go, competition.
Yep, totally.
Cool.
So,
hey man, competition's good. That means there's a market, so that's good. That's good. Now,
mine was going to be
now you have the specs to compete against.
Right, now I have the specs. Right, I've got a price and I've got a spec. Right, I can beat that.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to mention the. I didn't actually put this on the thing anywhere. I've been playing around with the NRF 91. Did I mention that in the show at all yet?
No.
I'm really excited about that too. So like I had mentioned that what was it? The SAM R34. That was that LoRa chip I mentioned a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
That's a cool looking little chip. But this is a module that's from Nordic. So Nordic Semiconductor got into the cellular business. I knew about this a while ago, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it. But now it's released, and and so it's a modem, but it's got so it can do LTE-M, which is like the low power cellular service that's rolled out a bunch of places. It can't do a lot of other stuff though. It can only pretty much do low power stuff. It's going to have NB IoT, which is like the other that's Cat M1 and Cat M2 are the two low power cellular things. But but the crazy thing is it can do GPS as well. So in like this package that's probably like 20 millimeters by 10 millimeters, I think. It's pretty tiny. It can do GPS and cellular for like, I think the list price is like $15. So, I mean, still not like super cheap, but
No, it's not dime a dozen, but it's,
Right.
No, to have that sort of functionality a few years ago would have been super expensive.
Oh my God, yeah, exactly. I mean, so like, and I was designing with like U-Blocks modems and similar, like in other ones, there's just, they're power hungry. This is going to be low power. And so having access to cellular stuff too, I just think I'm really excited. So I got a dev board and I'm really excited to try it out. Or I've been playing with it a little bit, but like, try it out in my own design. And it's a crazy time we're living in, man. Like the chips that are available these days, everything's just like getting combined into everything else, Yeah. But that's, then there's also, I think like a lot of these new things too. So like the NRF 91, I know it uses Zephyr, which is a RTOS. And a lot of the things are like, basically there's these higher level things like you're talking about at the beginning of the show, right? You're so abstracted from everything, which is good at the beginning because, you and I are software dummies, but bad when something goes wrong. Basically you have to find someone to call when there's something wrong because digging down into the stacks and stacks of software, it's like, boy, I hope I can find something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're just bumming around, really.
Right,
if
exactly.
You just try and do it yourself. Yep.
Yeah. I am. So speaking of RTOSs as well, I don't know if you've seen the AWS thing too. that was on the list. So yesterday they announced. So like this
AWS?
stuff's all. Yeah. So Amazon Web Services. That's like the
Amazon. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So they do.
They're doing an RTOS? What?
So yeah, they have been doing one. So they've been doing one for a while. This is basically AWS IoT is like one of the offerings where they're trying to like, kind of like suck
it's
in
one
your
of their
data.
million
use them.
offerings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like using MQTT servers and like a lot of like standard stuff like that. Basically like these verified endpoints. So basically you have a device somewhere in a field and it's talking to the internet and it needs to dump its data somewhere. And so basically it has to like certify itself with the AWS network, and then it can say, then it'll basically dump data to this effectively public but not actually public web address.
Right.
And that's what the certificates are for. So
I did say years ago, didn't I, that Amazon Internet of Things would actually be the winner? Would actually
think, yeah,
rule them all,
I remember
ultimately.
talking about that, yeah.
All the
Yeah.
smaller players would, ultimately fall by the wayside.
I don't agree with this. Well, maybe the smaller players, but like Google's in
no,
this and Microsoft Azure, like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
like
exactly.
the big players that are. Yeah.
Well, look, if I was, we mentioned this before. If I was designing a product that needed, to work for the next 10 years, I'm not going to be using, some little tin pot service. I'm going to be using the Amazon Internet of Things service, right?
Yeah,
It's just more guaranteed to be there long term.
Yes, I generally agree.
Maybe not a Google one, because Google have a habit of, canceling their projects and stuff like that.
I think on the server side stuff, they're usually a little better. Maybe the consumer stuff, I wouldn't trust with my life.
Okay.
I would, I wouldn't bet my Google Glass on it. How about that?
Still can't sell it.
At this point, Dave, I'm just cherishing the memories.
It'll be like the equivalent of like long hair and sideburns in the 1980s. It's like the big hair thing. You'll look back and I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I had hair like that. And I can't believe I wore Google Glass.
Yeah. Moving on.
Oh dear.
Anyways,
you were so excited about that. It was hilarious.
Okay, all right. Yes, we all think it's so friggin' funny, Dave.
It's great.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway.
Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so free RTOS. So Amazon a while back, it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, they started basically developing for free RTOS, having their own flavor of it. So basically they put a bunch of hooks in so they could hook into AWS easier. They've been developing for like Espressif, so like the ESP32 and ESP8266. So there's a bunch of starter kits for that kind of stuff. And now they just announced that they're going to start supporting RISC-V stuff as well. So obviously that's RISC-V is an ISA, it is not a chip, which means it's an instruction set architecture, as we've learned over and over again. Listen to past shows and all of the angry comments about it. But they're supporting things like the what's in the article. But basically, there's a couple of chips that are out that they're supporting at the beginning, and basically they're going to start porting to other architectures over time.
Right.
I think that's going to be even more interesting, if they define things for broader architectures, right? So like if they make a device that could hook into that ISA and work with that, but I don't know how the hell that would work, because the reason I say as much is because I think the RISC-V stuff that's really interesting is the people that are putting it on FPGAs and making custom things. So if you can only use it on 2 or 3 chips in general, anyways, it's less interesting. But this is a good move. I think this is great. So
cool. Does it work? Do you know if the RISC-V works on like the super low end FPGAs?
It does, yeah. So like Clifford, who's been on the show, he actually has one. It's called like Pico LV, I think.
Okay.
Pico RV, I believe. Yeah. So Pico RISC-V, right?
Right. Oh, okay.
Pico
right.
R5.
It's a special version of it that's optimized for low.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the thing that's interesting. We're going to see more and more people that are building their own processors based on the architecture. Like I'm not sure how many there are out there, but I keep seeing newer and newer things out there where people are like, they're building entire processors around this architecture.
Yeah, but it's only like a handful of people. in the scale. Like,
it's
you know,
a lot
Joe
more than you'd
Average
think,
is
though.
Joe Average is not going to be. You know, they just want to get their product done. They just want to get the job done. They're not going to worry about rolling their own processor.
Yes,
right?
you know, I totally agree with that. But I'm just saying, there's a lot more than there would have been.
Oh, sure.
So like in the FPGA space, right? So for a long time, it's like if you wanted a processor in there, you got to either use one of the open ones. I think the Cortex M0 maybe had like a license-free things. But I'm just thinking about like the old FPGAs that I worked on. There was like some that you could put in there.
Yeah.
But they were either the ones from Xilinx or Altera, or like one or two other, maybe ARM like licensed some of the low end stuff. And then there's like an 8051.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
there weren't like a ton, but now it feels like there's just a lot more available out there, and people are doing open source licensing as well. So it's interesting, I think. You know, I don't know how that stuff works at all, because then you probably have to. I mean, there must be they have to write like your own machine code to actually talk to that stuff, or I'm not sure.
I was going to say about that, you know, we've had enough issues with, you know, mainstream processors, you know, the ST ones and the compilers that, you know, like everyone's using, and yet we still run into issues. I mean, you know, you've got to be concerned with how many issues are hidden in these, because you know, like in the scheme of things, like hardly anyone's using, you know, these RISC-V ones yet. So it's like, how many hidden issues? If you know, start developing your product, you know, you might run into some weirdo issue. So, yep. I
think you're right, but I think that also goes back to like most people listening, most people doing this stuff are not going to use that stuff. I think they're gonna, you know, maybe if they pick a RISC-V one, they're gonna grab one off the shelf that there is like a, you know, consensus around. But I don't think that it's gonna be. I think right now it's researchers and people tinkering around and you know. The true crazies in the best of ways, like Clifford. So yeah, I think we're gonna move towards that in the future. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays with like services like this, though, right? So like, how then does RTOS get ported to a new processor like that, and seeing how that stuff works in the future will be interesting. Yeah. So, the reason I was looking at RTOS in the free RTOS, this came up when I was looking at stuff a while back. I was looking at like, okay, so now I have a thing in the field. Say it's cellular, say it's Wi-Fi, say whatever it is. It's connected somehow. Yeah. How do I actually manage, and I think maybe mentioned on the show, how do I manage to push new firmware to some of the stuff that I have out there, right? So say I have
you've got
1,000 units in the field, right? They're all connected. They're capable of receiving this stuff. But how do you actually manage, like, okay, well,
you need a wireless kernel you need a wireless bootloader system. You got to add the, you know, like everyone's used to like serial bootloaders and, you know, maybe USB bootloaders and stuff like that. But then you've got to add the serial. You know, if you got to add the Wi-Fi stack, and all this has to go in the bootloader section. And some sections of micros, right, only have limited bootloader space, physical space. It's not an arbitrary large, you know, it's not like 30, you know, if you've got a 64K process, you can't make a 32K bootloader, you know.
Right.
It's like some of them are actually physically constrained. So,
Yep. Yeah, and I think that so like the free RTOS has it built in basically, so like some of that stuff is it helps handle that kind of thing. There's another one out there called Mongoose. So and I basically asked on Twitter, like I'm not like finding this, none like I know everything. No, this is me asking on Twitter, and a lot of people responded very nicely. There's another one called Mongoose OS, and that basically handles some of that stuff as well. And and there was one or two other solutions, because I was basically like, okay, so now I make a completely custom device. I want to have this thing in the field. I want to be able to update it. What are my options? And it's either you write your own bootloader like you're talking about, or you grab someone off the shelf like, you know, the Amazon free RTOS or Mongoose or something like that. And then you deal with all the other things that are missing or included with it. Right? That's always the thing. When you're targeting for a specific feature, then you're stuck with all of the other warts that it has. You know, that's the problematic side of it. I have not made a decision yet personally, but I'd love to hear if people have. I mean, like, it's just a hard problem to solve.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are services too. So like Particle is a good example. Like they basically handle a lot of this stuff. You're in their ecosystem, but you have to be. Like you can't make anything custom out. You know, basically they have that module that like the hardware's locked down at that point. And you can, you know, interface with things, but then they handle that software piece. And so it's kind of, you know, either, you pay to be in that ecosystem, which is
You've
fine.
got to
or
be
if
locked
you're-
into you become locked into
Right.
the ecosystem. You've got to
Right.
choose to buy into that.
Right, and but like when you really look at the costs, sometimes I've looked at the costs and I'm like, oh shit, maybe it's just worth it to do that. Like
Yeah,
there
of
are
course.
balance points where sometimes it's worth it just to pay your way out of it.
Yep.
And
Oh, totally.
so interesting stuff there as well. I mean, some of this stuff, we'll see if any of it ever takes off. A lot of these projects that I work on, it's like I'm trying to figure out if it'll work and can it work, and sometimes the answer is nope. So, or I talk with people about what the actual answer is, and here lay it all out there, and they go nope. So that's fun.
Oh, but you're not thinking outside the box. Can't just say
I'm
no.
not thinking. I mean, I can say nope. I say nope. It's just I have to accept that the answer might be we're not going to pay you anymore, Chris. And say, okay,
Yeah, right.
well.
How's the
Yeah.
consulting gig going?
It's going pretty good. I was thinking about the other day. I think I'm averaging about 2 boards per month.
Right.
I've got a bunch of different clients, and it's still challenging. That's
Is it
good.
board layout you're doing, or are you designing systems, or are you like, what are they calling on you for?
A little bit of both. I mean, like, so sometimes it's like, so for like a simple system I just started on, it's like, here's a problem. How do we do this? And
Right.
from that, ended up like the solution was pretty simple, actually. It was just like needing to switch things on and off in certain ways. And okay, I basically used some of my past experience to design a board, fit their form factor. That was like one thing.
Right.
And that's cool, right? It's not going to be the most. I could have gone crazy. I could have been like, well, let's put an Intel processor in there.
that's right, yeah.
We need a 20-watt power supply. But like that's not the right actual answer for solving a problem. And sometimes it's more like, hey, I've got a prototype. I need to make this a product. That's another one that I've been doing, and that's usually
Okay, yep.
board layout and hardening, and that's interesting too from its own perspectives.
So do you think you'll end up finding yourself like not pushed, but sort of like falling into some niche, like Mike Harrison, for example, with his lead art things? Do you think you'll end up like that, or do you? Or are you? Would you like that, or would you actively try and fight it if you have found yourself? I'm not going to take that job because I did that last time.
I think there are some jobs that eventually I would pass off. I wouldn't say no to. I would try and find someone else for him first.
Right.
But I don't know. I think that's more of like, honestly, it's some of it is skill, right? And I think that Mike is. I mean, obviously, if people haven't listened, go listen to shows where Mike's on. Holy crap, is that guy skilled, right? And like, look at his projects; it's amazing. But I think that's also a function in networking as much as anything else. And that's one of the things that I've been learning is it's. So like Mike definitely has a name in that space as well. So like the reason he keeps getting work like that is because he is one of the best in the area. Like it's just, and he takes jobs based on the projects the problems he wants to solve. And I think that has been increasing in complexity over time. I'm speaking for him, of course. I don't know if that's actually the case.
I think it's right.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to come down to like, if I keep doing decent networking and I have clients that like me and they recommend me for other things, I could get pigeonholed, but I don't think that they're specific enough right now that that's a problem.
Got it.
So
Yep. Cool.
yeah, so we'll see. But I really do like it right now. I mean, there's some tough days, but
Right.
I will say again, the forum that I started, the consulting forum, it's been great for support and asking questions and, bitching about stuff. Like that's great. So if there's people that are interested in consulting or are consulting, there's a form for applying, and you can join us if you want.
What's the address?
It's a Google form, so I'll just put a link in the show notes.
Oh, it's do Googles do forums? What?
It's a Google form. Sorry,
Oh,
form and forum.
Form.
Yeah, it's
How
a
does
Google
that work?
form to apply.
Yeah.
And then it's a. What do you mean? Yeah, so it's like the forms that we do for. Forum
I
with
know
no
about
you,
the forums, but
and then
how
forum.
do people chat and discuss things?
Oh, they don't. So they that's what they use to apply, and then I give them access to the forum with a U, which is just a hidden part of the Contextual Electronics forum.
Oh, okay, right. It's a private section, right? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's great. It's great. We are starting to run out of time. Are there any things on this list that you wanted to go over? There's some stuff I'd like to mention real quick.
Then you mentioned them.
So first off, Latch Up, another conference is happening. This one is...
See, conferences everywhere. That we don't have here. Let me guess, it's not in Australia.
It is not. It's in Portland, Oregon. It's about open silicon. So this might be some of the RISC-V people, RISC-V. So that's coming up in the week after KaiCon, actually. So it's May 4th and 5th, I think. That's out in Portland. So that'll be an interesting one.
It's a conference dedicated to free and open source silicon. Wow, that's a niche crowd.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think the last one was in Europe. It was, I think like 150 people. So
wow, okay, cool. That was probably the entire community turned up, right? The entire
I think it was a lot of people. I think a
community.
lot of people who were working on similar stuff, right?
Yeah.
Were there. So,
right.
But I think there's a lot more on the state side, so that kind of helps to, if you make it at least on the right continent, people can travel a little
right?
easier.
Yeah, of course.
There's another link, Kickstarter and China manufacturing. Got it all wrong. It's a bit of a longer read, but basically it's kind of a discussion about like people, stuff we've talked about here, where people are going to China with the Kickstarter stuff. They don't really know what they're getting into.
And they think that they can just
specifically on the
pay
IP
money
side.
and it happens, magically happens.
Right. Yep. So that's a good post. I do recommend it.
Let me guess, the answer is no, it doesn't just magically happen.
It does not just magically happen. That is correct. How did you know?
I'm an oracle.
Yeah. Let's see. Robert Farnick made a video about cheaper PCBs. So, past guest of the show. Definitely check out that video. Let's see any others here. This is an interesting one as well. Timpen is an open source hardware and software developer for hearing aid stuff. I thought you'd like that because you've done hearing aid stuff in the past, right?
Yes, I've done work for Cochlear. Yep. It wasn't hearing aid; it was the implant stuff.
So this is kind of trying.
But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Implant, right? Yeah. So that's an interesting open source project that's coming up, and yeah.
Sweet.
I don't know. There's a lot of other stuff on the. There's the Grace Hopper video too. That one's good.
I've seen that.
That one?
It does the rounds every couple of years. Yeah,
it's old. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People post it and then it gets viral for a few days and then rinse and repeat every couple of years.
I mean, because she's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I've watched it several times.
That's about it. I mean, there's a bunch of other things on there. So, check it out. I think.
Cool bananas.
I think there's a lot of good. There's always a good posts on if you follow the subreddit, that's a good place to go. Those all get posted to the Amp Hour Twitter, so you can follow it there as well. And you can always follow myself and Dave. Dave is EEV blog on Twitter, and I'm Chris_Gamel.
And you don't always get electronics related stuff. No,
you don't. That is correct.
Take it or leave it.
That's right. Yep. All right, man. Well, we'll talk soon.
Catch you next time.